Taimur, let's do it.
All right. So in episode 1 of this podcast, you talked about how one of the goals is to discuss the God-centered life, right? Okay. And how we want to live coherent lives as believers. And, we're talking about lots of things in relation to that. I think a big thing that a lot of people, myself included, will be thinking about and feeling maybe a little bit lost on is how do I practically actually spend my time? Obviously, when I'm not praying, when I'm not eating, when I'm not sleeping, whatever, how should I think about what to do for work and what to do for fun? This kind of stuff. What do you think?
Well, as for fun, now everyone will have their own list, I'm sure. But yeah, look, as for life and life direction, yeah, this is one of my key things. I think I'm definitely all on this thing around like discovering your own authentic, unique path. Okay.
I'm wincing, mate.
You're
wincing.
Good. Please wince as much as you want at the beginning, and at the end you'll be feeling so good. Yeah, I'm definitely all for that. Meaning that I do think that, but I think that is the other side of the coin. That is saying the same thing as living like the truly God-centered life. Meaning that if we say, okay, at the heart of all my considerations is why I'm doing X, Y, Z. Of course, ideally, how I'm going about, what I'm doing, then it's driven by what does God want from me, right? So I just think that therefore, in the context of people's work and, their earning and all of this stuff, given the way it is in terms of it becomes this all-consuming, almost identity-defining preoccupation, like I just think that that's just really worth thinking very, very carefully and closely about. And I would also say that, which I was kind of thinking about again recently, is that actually I think today's day and age and just where we are technologically and where it's all going, it's funny, all the secular narratives are saying, to my mind, the same thing. They might not be explicitly referencing the God part of it. Some do in a kind of quasi sort of odd, the middle sort of spiritual type of way. But yeah, like I think the time for figuring out your purpose has never been more urgent.
Okay, so how do we do it? Okay,
first you tell me why you're wincing.
Okay, yeah. I mean, look, there's a lot of talk nowadays about like authenticity. This word is thrown around constantly. I think there's this kind of very modern sense that like it's very, there's this kind of special kind of metaphysical reality called your authentic self.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
And you're
totally down with that.
And it's crucial, as a person to express your authenticity, to sort of project this outwards or something, and etc. I'm generally skeptical of this because I think a lot of the stuff that suppose someone does some like soul searching and they're like, oh, what's my authentic self or whatever. The reality is 95+% of like what we care about, what we like, etc. It's all influenced by our time and place. There's nothing. The question is how. Okay, first I'd like to hear your conception of the authentic self.
Yeah,
and then I'd like to hear about how someone can divine this authentic self away from just random stuff that like you just take in and becomes part of you because of where you've grown up.
So maybe it's fine. So maybe we're not so much in. Maybe we're not so much in disagreement, perhaps because maybe I wasn't clear, or either you're straw manning me, or I don't know what you're doing. But basically, look, I'm not saying, for me, it's not the issue where it comes from, right?
Okay.
There might be a combination of internal, external factors that obviously define us, what we like, what this, that, whatever. My thing is that I just come back to this simple framework. I say to somebody, take away the money, right?
Okay.
Take away the need for money, and
so sorry, we're talking about like what to do.
Yeah, but just in life. But I'm thinking money. Like but it relates to this.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm talking about how do you discover what is authentically what you want to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. Yeah.
And I'm just going to say, and so I'm just coming about it from that angle, which I find is the fastest way to get there now, based on my experience now, which is that if I take away the money, so I don't need the money, I assume kind of abundance in that sense, and I also add a dose of urgency as well by not assuming I've got like, all of the time in the world, because, so I'm kind of, my mind is focused essentially. What do I do? Right. And then in our context, because we view, because we have this deep sense of accountability, we're going to stand in front of our Lord, we have to justify our choices, etc. So then that's where the kind of component comes in of, okay, well, this is the point though. See, this natural self, right, or essential self, to our mind is already essentially aligned with what God wants. Meaning, if we free from all the clutter, we would. I feel that there is something around like your kind of your sort of your essential nature, and then your particularities, which then combine to say, okay, free from fear, free from need. This is what I would do with my life. This is what would be the most meaningful, purposeful thing that I could possibly think of doing.
Okay, yeah.
That is something which I just think, I personally feel we have a duty to sort of figure out and discover. That's it. And whatever that is for that person, and whether there's some combination of, societal and contextual factors in there, there will be for sure, no doubt, right? And fine, but that's okay.
Okay, so you're saying, look, there is, you do have this true self hidden underneath all this other crap, basically. Pardon my French. And to get rid of...
That's the limit of what we accept on this podcast.
Yeah, I was thinking, that is about the limit. And to like get rid of the clutter, to use a different word, you can sort of do this thought experiment where you think, okay, I don't need any money and I don't have that much time to live or something, really.
Exactly, yeah. So I generally now kind of say to somebody, I actually did a workshop not too long ago, in British Telecom, BT head office, which I didn't know maybe it moved a while back, but I've been a bit out of this whole city thing for a while. But it's actually right outside Aldgate East Station, so a stone's throw from East London Mosque. But anyway, so I did it there. It was hosted, and it was like people from different kind of professional backgrounds and stuff, and just hosted this session on vision and purpose, kind of. Well, they call it a masterclass. I don't know. Okay. I don't know. I might have been overselling it, but yeah, look, I always use this formula now. Like, I feel like a bit of a broken record with this one, but I always reminded by my experience of when I'm actually having a conversation with somebody about it, about how powerful it actually is. Yeah. Because if you do say to somebody, okay, look, what salary do you require, right, every year for the next 3 years, so that you're not worrying about your kind of bills and this and that, whatever, right? And whatever, like, just a reasonable standard of living relative to whatever you think reasonable is. Yeah. That's funny, actually, because when I asked this in that masterclass, the first lady spoke up. She goes, I think I need £1 million a year. And I'm like, oh God, right? And then other people were like, then they were kind of second guessing their own, because I had given everybody.
Like, oh, maybe I should go higher.
I'd given everyone a moment to think about it, and then somebody was like, oh no, 150, 200, 250, but quite still pretty substantial figures. Frugal Taimur is thinking, whoa, what's wrong with everyone? 30k is enough. Anyhow, look, whatever it is, okay. Yeah. I say, okay, fine. So I just want to imagine, and then I say, okay, fine. Now imagine you have some benefactor who's going to give you that, no strings attached. All right, every year for the next. I mean, at that time I said 10 years, but then I decided that's too long. So let's say 3 years. Okay, 3 years I think just is a nice time frame, which is, actually, it's 1,000 days plus, right? A lot can happen. I told people then, and I say it again now, like, anyone who's watching or listening to this, like the extent to which your life can be so completely radically different in just a year's time from now, such that you would look back to this point and you would think, oh my, like that is almost unrecognizable, right? I mean, that we really underestimate. They say that's right. We underestimate what we can do. Unless I'm going to get this right.
Well, I think it's a Bill Gates quote or something about like people overestimate what they can do in like 1 year and underestimate what they can do in like 10 years or something.
So that's
something like that. That's kind of the opposite of what you're saying.
Yeah. Look, it's me versus Bill Gates. Come on, come on, people, put your vote right. In the right box. Yeah, but look, but I still think, like, when you're in the sameness, right? If you've experienced sameness in your life for especially when you're in a typical salary job and the typical corporate kind of thing, whatever, then 2, 3, 4, 5 years on, and you look back. Okay, fine, you've progressed, you maybe got a different title, kind of salaries increased, but there might be that kind of routine feeling to things where and the more it goes on like that, the more a different possibility just seems completely out of reach.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Anyway, but going back to it, at least I tell everyone, listen, just do the reason I do it like this is because I have found that people have just like stop daring to dream kind of thing, right?
yeah.
Like they just won't. It's just become hard to think outside the box.
Okay. But like what? Okay. So what kind of stuff do people come up with? I mean,
Yeah.
like I can imagine someone does this exercise and they come up with, you know what? Like I've always really been into like cooking, and I feel like I should have like become a chef or something.
Yeah.
And then they like go and become decide to pursue their like cooking dreams.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that kind of what you have in mind? Like,
okay, well, so the first most important thing is almost like, what sometimes is called like the anti-vision. Yeah.
Okay.
It's almost like, okay, the first question is, would you still do what you're doing right now? And I find in 90% plus of the cases, the answer is no.
Yeah.
That's very telling. And I think that's, and maybe a high percentage of that is like a strong no. Absolutely. Then we're like, you're kidding me. There's absolutely no way I'd be doing this. But then I think, but you are, right? So I just help, before we get onto what to do, it's like, I think there's a lot of value in just like, okay, well, developing a sense of that anti-vision, meaning a sense of sufficient discomfort that you want to move.
Yeah, right.
Because, and I even say to like university students as well, I say like, think about when you're 30 uni or whatever, graduating, and you secure that, I don't know what, typical or what decently regarded sort of starting salaries are nowadays. I don't know if you have an idea about that, but like, do you?
I recently found out that, okay, if you try and think of like the archetypal like graduate job, it's probably like, some kind of thing in like Big Four type company or whatever. I was surprised to find out the starting salary like 10, 15 years ago was like about 30K.
Yeah.
And today it's still like 30K.
Really?
Mental, yeah.
Oh, okay, fine. So it hasn't
in London,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where it definitely needs to. I mean, in real terms, there's there's like a 30% drop or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, with inflation and everything else. Okay, fine. Well, okay. Well, that in a way makes it even. I think it makes it like, what do you? It's like you're going to trade your people. I just don't think are conscious of the trade that them is being made. Right, like everything else, there's an exchange of value going on. But with a salary, we just psychologically see it differently, especially at an early stage, I think. What a person doesn't think, they look at that 30 and they look at relative to whatever else and they think, like, that's pretty, that's just a good number relative to other numbers.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, they're not really making a clear assessment for it. Look at what you're giving for that 30. Yeah, of yourself, of your time, of your attention, your focus, your concern, your care. Like, I don't know, sort of, and then, to use your favorite word, what are you giving up of your authenticity? The kind of the stuff that you wouldn't otherwise do, the way you have to turn up or show yourself, which you don't really want to in that particular way. Now, look, there's a place for that, obviously, in social engagement, but people feel they lose themselves, they become a fake. And it's interesting because the idea of losing yourself, there's a Quranic concept, right? You lose yourselves, or they lost themselves, right? So the notion and the idea also of those who forget God. He makes them forget themselves.
Oh yeah.
It's really powerful. The verse specifically is, don't be like those who forget God. He makes them forget themselves. Right? It's really interesting. So it's almost like this idea that the sense of self, and then your sense of priority, your sense of responsibility, all of this stuff, can all be kind of completely shaken. So one of my friends actually, I remember him telling me. He is also somebody who quit sort of investment banking many years ago. So he's a bit older, and he would say like every year he just realized, as he was going more down this kind of more consciously sort of self-purifying sort of path, let's say, every year he was just realizing like how much of the baggage, the narrative, the kind of just the stuff that you accumulate within yourself about what matters, doesn't matter, that it takes, that you need to unlearn and like clear yourself of until you kind of see things from this more, I don't know, just a cleaner sort of perspective, more authentic kind of perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, I think, okay, so is this what I'd be doing? No, I'm trading. What am I giving up?
Yep.
Right? I'm giving up all of these different things. And then actually I say to people, actually, you're worth a lot more. And I know it's cheesy, but I'll say, but you're priceless actually. Yeah. Taimur, you're priceless. Yeah. No, really, because what you are, people. There's a reason why people say that they feel like they're selling their soul, right?
Yeah.
And if the soul is this immaterial, whatever, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna you can't put a price on that. So and then frankly, when you divide 30K into the hours, Yeah, or I don't know, investment banking starting salaries, maybe they're probably a bit higher, whatever,
Yeah, for
right?
sure. Yeah.
But it's fine, and they seem attractive, and obviously it was definitely relatively attractive back in the day. But I'm saying like you divide it down to the hour, you realize, God, it actually is pretty kind of peanuts. And then you realize this that in a lot of these kind of careers and stuff, it's you're trading labor. It's like time for money. Yeah, but like that's not a good trade, and especially with with this whole robotic revolution coming up,
right?
It's just not sensible anyway. I mean, we come to that maybe. I think we should have a discussion about AI, and obviously you're a lot more clued up about it. Well, let's get there towards the end at least. So I think, okay, fine. So then I say to people, okay, so what would you do? Okay, fine. Now let's say it is the chef thing.
Yeah.
Now we might say, people look at that and say, this is a good chef, and you're never going to be a chef. Okay, I don't know. Like I'm just a great believer in this thing of if you think you can or you can't, you will. You're right, basically, with that Henry Ford quote.
Yeah.
And I just think, okay, well, if that is the dream, really, and of course, anyone who knows anything about being a chef, I can't remember for the life of me what his name is. But he's done one of a popular talk, or it was an interview actually. I think it's on the Oxford Uni thing. There's quite a famous chef who's done Oxford Uni. I think it's on the Oxford Union YouTube channel.
Okay, yeah. Like he's done Marco Pierre White.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, he's very interesting. I've seen a few.
Brilliant talk.
Yeah.
Brilliant talk. But it goes down to this, right? I think this combination of authenticity, but also essentially really emphasize. A great storyteller, but like this kind of is brutal. It's going to be brutal.
He's an absolute savage, mate.
Yeah.
There's like a really funny quote. So I think Gordon Ramsay like trained under him.
Okay.
And Gordon Ramsay is meant to be like this really hard guy. Like he's like swearing at people. Like like you don't mess with Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah.
And I think the interviewer asks Marco Pierre White like, can you tell us about that time that you made Gordon Ramsay cry? And he goes like completely like seriously.
Yeah.
I didn't make Gordon cry. Gordon made himself cry. Like, this guy is hardcore.
Okay, fine. So look, no comment on that necessarily, because that won't be everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah.
But my point being, certainly in that particular talk I'm referring to, just the notion of like what we're not saying here is there's going to be an easy path. In fact, it's relatively speaking, it might be an untrodden path, or certainly feel like that, because it's just like it's typically associated with just more uncertainty, essentially. But in uncertainty, which people obviously, generally speaking, don't like or don't want to embrace, but is just this existential reality.
Yeah.
Like that's where the growth is. That's where the self-discovery is. That's where you just go deeper levels of, whatever. And then again, if you put this kind of a ring around everything, which is this idea of what does God want, God-centeredness, etc. You're trying to kind of figure that out, figure yourself out. Then I think you're doing justice to what the point is, because from our frame, it's like that's discovering your God-given potential and the idea of accountability relative to potential. Well, this is where you discover it, I think, by fulfilling, because otherwise, whose tune are you dancing to, basically? That's the issue.
And like, are you talking specifically to people who are, materially, somewhat comfortable?
No,
and
no,
you're
I'm
talking
not.
to everyone.
Yeah, anyone. I think anyone.
Yeah.
And I think, like, people always come. Obviously, most of the people who are going to be watching, listening to this, probably, I'm imagining that, I don't know, Sudanese farmers aren't watching this or listening to this podcast, right? And clearly, there's a different realm, okay?
Yep.
But sometimes I find when I do this, and then someone who's skeptical will say, yeah, but what about those people over there? And I'm like, well, okay, yeah, what about them? We can talk about it, but like, why is that your problem or your concern, right? Like, we're responsible for our issue, and people, it's obviously no judgment, right, of this or that person. It's just like, it is given your circumstances, are you doing that thing? And actually, how are you framing things? A lot of people will say, and the other counter argument I hear to this is, oh yeah, but why are you critiquing like these normal jobs, because work is worship and all of this stuff, right? And I think, okay, that's fine, but I really honestly think if most people are honest with themselves, like, this, is that how it feels? Well, that's what I'll ask them.
Yeah, right.
When you're doing, is that how it feels? Now, what's really interesting is that I think when you're on the breadline,
Sorry, what's the breadline?
No, there's no breadline, as in you're kind of like on the.
I haven't. Okay,
Taimur, you middle upper class dude.
What have I done?
I'm not cutting that bit out.
I haven't heard this term before. I can kind of guess what it means now.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Yeah. So you're basically, you're just about making ends meet. You're on the edge.
Fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
You see, the person who's living hand to mouth, salary to salary, whatever.
Yeah.
And now that person's going out, providing for the family, whatever. You see, there's something almost automatically more almost like sacred about it, I think.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's kind of, you're more, let's just say it's easier to be in that mode. Where it's difficult to be in that mode is in that middling bit.
Yeah,
right.
Where like you're comfortable, you probably have options if you like really try it and stuff, but you're kind of on autopilot.
No, exactly. And then, of course, like the worldly objectives pile up. There's a lot of this subconscious or even conscious keeping up with the Joneses, that whatever.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then it's like, how much is enough? Well, it's just never enough.
Yeah.
Right. And you're never making out this kind of like, let's just say, typically in these kind of pathways, you're not making that breakout money that you can just be completely free of it, which obviously relatively few people, kind of get there. So I say it's easier to think more purely at the two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But in that middle part,
Yeah.
That's where all the drama is, and that's why I often say, like this is addressed, sort of, for the middle class Muslim, as I call it, or the the middle class sort of thing, because you're in that tension between purpose, need, what is enough, and these things keep redefining themselves. Okay, because then it's like private schools. Okay, then it's like buying the house, and then it's this, and then it's that, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So and then it's quite hard for a person to then say, oh, this is still about just my, because look, the thing about providing as a sacred duty or worship, it's about doing, like, I'm not saying doing the absolute minimum. Yeah. And if it's more, it's fine, but it's like doing that purposefully too. Like, I think it needs to be very oriented purposefully. Like, if the overarching dynamic is this kind of this idea of provision, but there is almost this kind of an aspiration beyond that transcends the material. Right. And that's why the motivation behind a certain type of education, a certain type of thing going on with the kids. I mean, it's easy to fool yourself as well with all of that. Right. Yeah. Okay. Then you might say differently. But for a lot of people, if they're honest, it is like the next thing. And this kind of almost like small, like relatively small scale, if you zoom out, relatively small scale type of materialism becomes really the objective. And that, getting up and walking into, your sort of... on your road to being partner at XYZ law firm, thinking like this is my labor of love for God. Maybe now it could be.
It's possible, yeah.
It is possible. So this is why I also say, like, I know because some people can say, well, like, dissing all corporate careers and whatever, it's all very well for you, yada yada, right? But I'm not saying that. Yeah. What I'm saying is,
well, you're saying, what's the state of your heart as you're doing this?
Or I'm saying, if you go through this thought experiment, and that's where you end up back.
Yeah.
Fine. Right. Yeah. Absolutely. There are people like I always think about my boss when I was in banking. Like, he was just born to do that thing.
Really?
He's still doing it, and he loves it, right? He loves it. Like, so Mick, if you're listening,
shout out Mick.
Shout out. He was a ledge. And I'm sure he still is. Yeah, I need to catch up. But yeah, loves it. Like, he just had this native obsession, right? For went to Oxford actually, PhD Oxford, I think. It's all you lot, isn't it? Right? It's just a native obsession for like the oil and gas industry, everything that's going on about it, like just as Oxford has just the storytelling around it. It was great, and he was, and probably still is regarded as as one of the dons in that kind of space. And it was definitely good working with him. It was tough as well at times, but do you know what I mean? Just born to do that thing. Now, now that obviously I'm not saying like, okay, yeah, born to be a lawyer, born to be a businessman, born to be this, born to do that, whatever. Like, that's what you feel. But you feel this sense of, like, it's that whole thing around, that nice quote around, what looks like work to others but feels like play to you. That's probably a good indication.
Right. Okay, so someone, this hypothetical middle-class Muslim goes on the journey. They realize, okay, I'm kind of just doing this office job thing to climb up the ranks and kind of keep up with the Joneses or something like this. I've always had a passion for cooking. I really like cooking. It's more creative. Like, I can express myself, some stuff like this. And they conclude that, I should follow my dreams and stop doing more cooking, like become a chef or something.
Okay, fine. So obviously nowadays, right, the whole cooking thing, like there's a whole range of ways that passion could be followed up on. Yeah. And this is the other thing. Like, I think people, if you haven't already caught up to it already, like the opportunity to just do whatever you want to do in a way that's going to sustain itself. I mean, people are doing all sorts of completely random
you can make
things.
A living doing all sorts.
Exactly, right? Exactly. So I just think that so this particular passion, now it depends, right? And the idea is, I always say to people okay,
sorry. Okay.
Go on.
So I think most people consider cooking relatively wholesome.
But just stay with it for a second. Yeah?
Okay, fine.
Let's stay with it.
Let's move on. Yeah, let's do the cooking thing for a bit.
No. All I wanted to say about that is that, which I think is an important lesson, just regardless of cooking or not cooking. I can't cook to save my life. But it's just this thing about starting or continuing. Like meaning, let it be the side hustle. Psychologically, it's very common for it to become like this binary thing, where because I am doing corporate law, I can't do my cooking.
Yeah, sure.
In a way, or not in that kind of beyond just my own dinners or whatever it might be. Meaning, if it's a kind of thing where you want to add value into society through that, and then from our perspective, right, you would potentially, if you're thinking about it from that God-centered lens, taking it to potentially a new level. Maybe there's a combination of the way in which you relate to it yourself, the way in which you convey it and whatever, that kind of brings all of it together. Because like we said before, there's a lot to be said around just food, the blessing of food, the nature of food, kind of like the supply chains and what's good, bad and ugly and all of that stuff. Sure, you know what I mean? There's a lot to be done. So this can be taken in a lot of different directions. Sure. And I would just say that when somebody has done this thought experiment about what would the ideal look like, and they might have some various hypotheses. Like, it's not like this is it for life, because obviously it's always going to be iterative. Then things are going to evolve, and you're going to find out more about yourself and experience, and it's going to keep evolving, just as I've had that experience as well. Where now I finally come home into this podcast. I have discovered myself. I was thinking actually before, it's like, sometimes now in between the discussions I feel a bit down, like, doing the administrative stuff, and then I kind of sort of come alive in the discussion, nice. And then I go home depressed again. So yeah, but yeah, it's just a start then. Right? Meaning, like, it's not black and white, either this or that. Like, start doing the thing and start, like they say, press publish, like, get it out there, do whatever, like, put it on YouTube or, send out recipes or whatever. Just do something, just start adding value into the world essentially through this thing. That's it. Okay. What you were going to say before.
Okay. Yeah. So far, everything you said is the kind of thing that all sorts of people say on like Instagram reels about, like, follow your dreams, side hustle. Make money.
So what's the difference?
So what's the difference? Where does the God-centered thing come into this? And like,
the God-centered thing comes into this is because when I say it like this, I say, if you believe you're going to stand before your maker and then he's gonna, you have to justify yourself. Yeah. That whatever the outcome of this thought experiment, and then hopefully your actions is something that you would say directly to your Lord, essentially, to say, I did this for you. That's the key.
Okay.
But so now why is that's powerful then, I think. And for us, I think that just brings everything together. So what you want to be able to do is get to a state where you can say, and this is very, as we said, like, it's very Abrahamic, it's very prophetic, very Quranic, the idea that my everything is for God, basically. Yeah. And we'll come down, there's like a million verses, exaggeration, but you know what I mean? A lot of verses, right, which emphasize this idea, and we come back to them. But that's what I want everyone to think about. I want you to think about, right, how do you know you're doing it for God? Because if God asks you, and you just picture that moment, say, what were you doing? And what were you trying to do for me, essentially? Or what were you just trying to do in my name, right? I would say Bismillah, like, in my name, what were you trying to do for my sake, for my cause? Again, this idea of a divine agenda where order on earth reflects divinely communicated priorities, let's say, and where you fit yourself within that and trying to make that corner of the world a little bit more reflective of, these kind of macro divinely communicated values, but then in such a way that is specific to you as a specific individual divine creation, as part and parcel of all the diversity, that when it all comes together as it should, harmonizes, right, that you have this sort of utopian sort of thing. So that's the difference. That's the difference. It's not just about your, like, I don't know, call it your passions, your interests, your skill set, whatever. Yeah. But it's a labor of love, but it's a labor of love you love and you think God loves.
Got it. Okay. I think there's a gap that we need to fill, though. I think there's quite a wide gulf between, like, the middle class Muslim who doesn't love their job in the city, to then, like, having a sense of, like, what God wants from them in this particular domain of their life. So, for example, with the cooking thing, for example, okay, so if you can put yourself in someone in the shoes of that person who, like, decides the cooking thing, like, what might their thought process be as they think about, when I'm standing before God, this is my justification for why I decided. It's not
you don't need to think about it as justification. I have used that word.
Yeah, maybe justification is not quite the right word.
But the point being is this. Okay, so that when it comes to that, the way that gap is filled is by thinking about the value that you're adding.
Okay, yeah.
And also, as we've spoken about before, like I would say certainly to a degree, it's like there's a combination of your intention, your motivation, your if you want to say like your brand or sense of identity, and the kind of impact that you're trying to have. So if somebody's motivated by doing this, because like the notion that, okay, so it comes from, yeah. So if we stick with the value thing, then it's like in an ideal sort of societal sort of setting or outcome, what would the situation with regards to food be? Now that's something there's a discussion to be had.
Yeah.
Discussions are being had, right? Maybe more need to be had.
Yeah.
What does it look like? Supply, sourcing, health. So all of these things all of these discussions align with the notion of, what's lawful, what's wholesome, all of these types of things.
Yeah.
And there's guidance in relation to those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So somebody is triangulating between, again, as I said, the divinely communicated priorities with regards to that particular, call it subject area, their own passions and skills, which then again link, because it's not just I'm passionate, it's God has made me such, right? It's kind of like the thing that you're interested in, you can't explain why. It's just in the DNA. You know what I mean?
Yeah, at some level, yeah. Sure.
Right? And even if it is these kind of various societal and environmental factors, they're also part and parcel of just the time and place that you've been...
Yeah, how God made you.
Yeah, exactly, you're right. Similarly with the skill set, right? Like it's kind of the thing that you are tend naturally, there's a natural kind of talent or thing, and that's also part and parcel of it. So you're leveraging those, to use pun absolutely intended, you're leveraging the ingredients, okay, right? The God-given ingredients and a sense of the value you're trying to bring. Yeah. And you say, well, actually, like that's a kind of added value that is desirable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And therefore, and is wholesome, and it fits within those kind of things. And it doesn't, this is the point. Like we have discussed before, it doesn't need to be into this nitty gritty kind of thing. It doesn't even need to come with a very, again, this is where the challenge now of narrative comes in. Can you do it in such a way? Can you reflect in a very natural way, right? This kind of thought process, this authentic, God-centered, faith-oriented kind of thought process with regards to what you're doing in your life, and kind of just get it out there where it's not like, despite your belief or faith, it's not as in kind of in parallel with, it's just all melded.
Yeah.
And that's how you bring your, as I said, I think the trick is always the godliness and the goodness hand in hand. Yeah. So if you've doing that within yourself, it will just flow naturally.
So you've talked to a lot of people about this kind of stuff, right? Like what? Okay, I think the food thing was interesting.
Yeah.
what might the thought process? If someone goes on this vision quest and they conclude, you know what, I'm going to stay on the partner track for like auditing at Deloitte or something.
Yeah.
Like, what? How could someone reach that conclusion?
How could they?
Yeah.
Interesting.
From the vision quest.
Okay, so it's interesting. So they might well, as I said, some people are with regards to look from my perspective, I don't know why anyone would want to be a lawyer or an accountant. You know what I mean? Do you understand what I mean? So I can't even almost understand the mindset.
It's hard to relate to, but
but I'm saying it's hard for me to relate to.
Your guy Mick, but right? Like you worked in banking.
No, so that's what I'm saying.
Mick, yeah.
No, but this is what I'm saying. I'm not disrespect. No,
disrespect. But like you can surely empathize with Mick, right? Like you've been in that. Well,
exactly. No, that's exactly. There are some people.
Okay, so
they just love it. They love it. So
I love like video games or something.
No, hang on. But remember, it's almost there's these different intersecting kind of circles or realms that you need to look at, right? So there is how could you end up there? Well, I love this thing. I'm really good at this thing.
Yeah.
Now it could be that at the minimum, I'm adding value into the world that at least it's like a non. It's at least not negative. Okay. Let's say. Okay, it might not be saving the world.
Yeah,
it's kind of sort of a neutral sort of thing, right? But but it still performs an essential social function, even in this kind of utopian, divine, orderly, whatever in the future.
Yeah,
that still thing needs to exist. I remember thinking about that. Like you're still gonna have a stock market. You're still gonna have people saying buy into this and sell that.
Yeah,
and that's fine, right? Like as in so it may be. So that it may just be that, but it could be more than that, depending on what the specific thing is. Because obviously, you could be, for example, you can be legal counsel in different kinds of firms, different kinds of organizations. You can in a charity and this. So there's
multiple dimensions.
Exactly. What are you enabling through the specific skill? Right. Similarly, of course, with finance and accountancy, right?
Yeah,
I mean, basically,
every business needs it.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So you might say, okay, I'm good, but I want to orient it to this particular thing. So it becomes like a combo type of thing, right?
Okay.
In terms of leveraging this skill, but for these outcomes.
Yeah.
So that's can become interesting then. So I think that's, these are where some of these, where then you can see now, okay, fine. Well, here's how that might start to, kind of all sync up. There is the other thing as well, which is to say that the other motivation, which I have heard from people, and I know certain people, certain even of my friends, like they are very sincere about and clear about, which is that actually it is to make the money and then to use the money to do good.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. All I would say in that is just be clear about your lines, basically. Meaning, if you're going to do that, then hold yourself to that, because like you can, if that is the main motivation essentially, then you want to be making sure that you're almost prioritizing that, and are you feeling that on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah.
Right. There's one I often mention, a particular business person, very wealthy. I think was in the Sunday Times rich list, whatever, at some stage, and I had this chat with him one-to-one once, maybe a couple of years ago, and I said what I said, and I think he was also kind of interested just in his sort of son hearing it out as well, and then he perhaps felt after I kind of finished my thing that he needed to then say, like almost justify, right? No, because then you might, he might be thinking, I'm thinking, well, so why are you still like, you've got hundreds of millions of pounds, or what are you doing, right?
Yeah.
And he said, Iqbal, honest to God, the only reason, in his words, right, the only reason I'm doing this is to make money and give it all away for Allah, right? Like that's his kind of his thing, and he is like extremely generous, extremely charitable. Actually, I just linked up with him recently to facilitate a particular, project and stuff. So the point being is his driving motivation day to day. Now, somebody would look at him from the outside, they would have no idea. Like they would, think, okay, like he's rolling around in sort of obviously, just expensive ambiance, let's say, right? And might not just seem from day-to-day conversational business-related conversations that, just be just another person. But in terms of his deep felt motivation, right, it's that. And like his activities attest to that.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of these guys out there, right? Like a lot of these family foundations are springing up, right? So business and trade, it's not absolutely none of what I'm saying is to disparage any of that. Like it's not to disparage the path. This is what and this is where the authentic thing comes in. It's like I can't tell anyone. I think what I have, for some people at least, helpfully been able to do is just come up with a framework. I mean, I'm just communicating a framework that I have used for myself. It seems to work. I've always found it a very useful filter just to reorient and to refine. And you can do it to make big shifts maybe at the beginning, and then kind of refinements as you go along. That's it. And I think that, and I come back to that. I think we did mention you referenced the first episode at the beginning, and I think it is just that thing I think I mentioned then, which is to say that if you knew you had a year left, a month left, a week left, a day left, would you change anything?
Sure.
And I just think you just want to be in that place where no, I wouldn't, because the way I'm using my time skills. I'm preparing for that moment, and I'm doing it. Yeah, and it's always it's iterations and trajectory, but as long as we're on that.
So one thing that your framework feels almost too sort of voluntaristic. One thing that feels
freedom to do, impose it on people.
By that I mean like it really puts a lot of weight on like what the person prefers doing or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely.
Yeah, but like one thing that feels missing is some actual ordering of real overall priorities, just as an example, cooking, quite wholesome. We can kind of see how that connects to like good stuff, whatever. Let's say like someone's always been into gardening. Gardening is also wholesome, superficially or whatever. Like we think of it as like a wholesome activity.
Not just superficially.
Yeah, sure. That you can get deep about gardening, I'm sure. And I used when I was younger, I used to like gardening. I still like aspects of it. I like ponds and stuff like that. But that aside, if someone concludes like, okay, I really like gardening. I've like always been into it. I'm drawn to nature, etc., etc. Sure. There are like issues in the like plant, houseplant supply chain. The houseplant supply chain should be more ethical. We should be like.
Are you saying that as a point of knowledge or a point?
No, I'm saying this as a hypothetical. The houseplant supply chain has issues. It should be more ethical. we should be, I don't know, like the way we transport these plants,
Yeah.
it should be in electric vehicles, stuff like this, whatever. Like, I'm sure there are ways that the houseplant supply chain could become
Yes.
more,
But you're saying, is that
more
important?
good. But in the grand scheme of things, surely like the list of problems in the world
Yes.
and the
Okay.
importance of these problems should come into the framework.
All right. Yes. So I've got the best response to this now, and I'm going to quote someone whose name I've completely forgotten, but he is the author of a book called Jesus and the Disinherited,
Okay.
which Martin Luther King used to keep in his pocket.
Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah, like
Okay,
Martin Luther King.
okay,
Yeah. I mean, I only know of one, but anyway. So he used to keep this book, and so he says, and I will do my commentary on it. But he says, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and do that, because what the world needs is people who have come alive." Now, before I love the cheesy quotes. Okay, I love them. So you're gonna steal my thunder on this. But why I think that is, now this is my view. In the divine matrix, I do believe if everybody does follow that path, all of the higher and lower order priorities will be taken care of. That's it. Some people are going to do little bits of the puzzle, right? So just in that whole environmental space, that if everybody who had any passionate interest in that did the bits that they're interested in, so the part that the scientific components, the research components, the legal components, then the financial components, the actual activism components, right? The kind of sticking your hand to a wall component, which probably right, whatever, and then this houseplant issue and whatever, right? Like there are enough people on Earth, essentially. Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, I do believe that, I really do think that this is where it all will sync up if everyone to do it. If everyone to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, but if we do it, you're right. So
okay, but the reality is, there are a lot of big problems out there, and the house plant, like ethicist or whatever.
Sure. No, I get it.
Could be, like it's. Even if I accept that,
but you'll be surprised by one thing.
Even if I accept that your belief that if everyone is just living their authentic self, magically, like everything would be in proportion, and all the world's problems would be solved in the right order.
It would be paradise.
Yeah. Even if I accepted that, the reality is, like, we're not there, and surely the houseplant ethicist should be, should to some extent think, you know what, I don't know, like.
Okay, so I agree with you.
Bigger issues out there.
No. So I agree.
And I should sacrifice my personal preferences or like my personal affinity to gardening.
No.
They shouldn't do
that. No, they shouldn't do that. I'll tell you why. Because as I believe your brother says, if you don't enjoy it, you won't sustain it.
Agreed. Yeah. Like, obviously,
and that's really important, to be honest with you, right? Because
it's hard to force yourself to do something that you're really not into.
Exactly. Yeah. In any pathway, right, there is going to be the drag. Yeah, like, trust me, behind the scenes of the podcast, there's a lot of drag. Yeah, and if it wasn't for the fact that I, at least for now, I'm like enjoying these interactions, obviously credit to you and whoever else, right? Like, if it wasn't for that fact, then I just couldn't, right? I could tell myself the world needs a discussion forum where we have to discuss all these ideas and whatever. But if my heart's not in it, and I'm not enjoying it, it's just not going to happen. Yeah. So, but I do agree with you. Yes, we should look at how can I maximize the value that I'm going to bring, but without compromising, like the passion component, the interest component,
so you're
the skills
you're
component.
saying the houseplant ethicist, in their vision quest.
If that's the best they come up with,
well, yeah, but you're saying in their vision quest, probably there is a menu of options where they like houseplants, they like this, they're good at this, whatever, and like, they should kind of use that as sort of like a starting point.
I'm just saying the starting point should be the best thing that I can come up with that I think has the most value, that I'm most interested in, that I can apply my skill set to. Yeah. It might start there, it might grow from there. It might start there, it might stay there, because it can be a kind of a narrow hole dug very deep. But in a narrow hole dug very deep, that's what I was going to say before. Don't underestimate the ripple effects of that as well.
Yeah, sure.
Because that's another major thing. It's like the kind of the if someone can show that just the inspirational effect essentially. So I don't know, man. I think it works. I think it works. I think you are. I'm with you. Someone should look to how can I maximize the value, right? But not compromise the other thing. Because, but essentially what we're talking about here is this kind of thing that's often referenced, right? This Ikigai type of thing, right? Where you have these kind of 4 circles. What does the world need? What do I love? What am I good at? What can I be paid for? And I basically stick a fifth circle around all of it, which basically says, what does God want? Okay.
Yeah.
And I also say, just in relation to that start with an overall frame of what does God want.
Yeah.
Then go with what does the world need and work backwards from there. So go in that order. What does the world need? Meaning, to make that specific, what problems do I want to solve? Yeah. So and then who's my world? My customer base, my beneficiary base, whoever. What's the issue? What am I trying to bring to that? So that, people find it easier to think about, okay, here's a problem. Okay, what's the solution? Your expression of the solution is essentially the value that you're going to bring / vision, right? Then what do I love? And then go general and deal with each circle independently. What am I good at? Where's my skill set at, etc. And then the combination of that, I believe, then will give you a starting point for how you can add the most value in the world. And then that's where the sustainability thing then starts to get solved. I'm adding this value into the world, and now where's the sustainability going to come from? Now, if you are actually genuinely good at it, and there is actual value, even for a small number, like they say, you only need 1,000 true fans, essentially, right? Or 1,000 true customers, or 1,000 true whatever, right? And just to think, actually, just to put it back in the context of what we were saying earlier, for that 30 grand starting salary, right? The idea, just for an undergraduate to think to themselves, could I do something, offer something, where within a year, 1,000 people could be convinced to give me 100 quid each to pay for something. Suddenly you break it out like that. You don't think, nowadays 1,000 is nothing. It's 1,000, to get 1,000 views, 1,000 1,000, that's not, the network's effects are obviously crazy nowadays. So the idea that that's possible all of a sudden becomes that's a great way just to break it down, a little challenge essentially. And it could be through all these multiple things. So all I'm saying is that when we look at these circles, it's like you want to find yourself in the center, which means you haven't compromised on any one of these things such that you would say, now I'm adding a kind of value that I don't even want to add, or I'm just not loving this anymore, or actually I'm not very good at this, or God doesn't want this when you're just outside the whole box in the first place, right? And I just think when you get that combo comes in, I think again, from looking at it from this faith perspective, God provides in that. I just really honestly believe that. Like, I think if you're going to say, look, because I just say, look, if I trust like any of the big four or law firm, this or that, whatever, like they're paying my salary kind of thing, and now I'm reframing my whole worldview where almost he becomes employer, right, and I become employee / servant / advocate / whatever you want to say. Is he not going to pay? He will. Then, definitely, it's a guarantee. I think it's a guarantee. So as long as those things aren't kind of compromised, But when you start the other way around, that's when if you start with what can I get paid for, which is like the typical last year undergraduate, like job, any job, right? Any job will do. And it's crazy. Like I always give this example. There's one guy I met. I often quote this example. Obviously, I don't name him, but hopefully he doesn't feel if he ever sees this that I keep mentioning it. But like I just remember it just really stood out for me. So basically, this kind of a guy who I'd interacted with, because in my local area I used to do this like teenage boys kind of thing every so often, just as a kind of talk, discussion, whatever.
Okay.
Apparently
a circle.
Yeah, a circle.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been doing the kind of circle type thing. I mean, when I was younger, I did them for many years, and then kind of pause, and then usually get like one or two sort of desperate mothers on behalf of their kids, worrying about what's going to happen. Yeah. So then, haul in somebody just to talk to them. So anyway, so that was the context anyway of me knowing him. So then he went to uni, and as like all these guys, and then I remember, I think it was his second year, and then he was talking about like job applications and stuff. So I said, okay, so what are you going for? So he goes, I'm looking at like real estate consultancy. Yeah. And I said, okay, cool. So why do you want to go for real estate consultancy? And he said, because last summer when I was looking for internships, like that wasn't my first choice, but that was the only internship that I got. And then that was it. That was the rationale. And if you think about that, like, I don't know, my heart kind of sank really, because on the one hand, okay, fine, whatever, somebody might, but just as the motivation or the reason, like I'm just a great believer in the reason to the next thing is not because of the thing that happened before. The reason to the next thing is because of 3 things later or 3 steps later. Where's it going, right? I get it, but the constraining sort of effect of the kind of the system. Which I do believe at some point it's all going to break down anyway. But like it's just very constraining, I think, and people feel this, whether it's self-imposed and whether it's kind of externally imposed or whatever. But it's like there's quite a high degree of just a lot of fear-based, like almost, I don't know, vision or ambition crushing kind of thing, where it's like the best you can do is this because that's just what happened to happen kind of last year, sort of thing, you know.
But I'm guessing you would think that, you know, if the real estate consultancy intern's mindset was like, look, this is like a job that'll pay the bills for now. I'm gonna like save up some money and like go on my vision quest and like figure out, you know,
okay, yeah.
the
So
next thing. If they view it as a temporary stepping stone because they
Yeah.
need to like have a job or something. Do you find that?
No, so obviously, so that's what everybody says, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody says that.
Yeah.
You know, no, very few people go in, especially nowadays. Nobody's going to a starting point saying, you know, this is it forever, right? But my thing is, well, actually, no. But you can still it's just don't underestimate how far the thought experiment can actually take you in such a way that might inform your practical action differently, which then allows you to put that next step in a real context.
Yeah.
So it's not like, I would just give that as a kind of analogy of the stepping stones again. It's like I'm taking that next step on the stepping stone either in such a way that I can see at least a hypothetical path that I have actually charted out. So it's built on a thoughtful kind of I don't know, hypothesis. Let's say I'm taking this step, X period. That's going to give me this because I need this for that. Not just really, oh yeah, I'm just going to get some skills and whatever, right?
Yeah.
Some of my friends who are like, you started that way, they're still acquiring the skills 20 years later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the pigeonholing happens kind of quite quickly.
What kind of like shifts have you seen? Like, you know, for people who've like done your course on this or like who you've given your like pep talk to.
Well, if
like, can you share some like anecdotes of like before and after, like what kind of career changes?
I'll share some examples where, you know, I'm not going to take credit for any of the inspiration necessarily, and it might have been that some of that path was accelerated or refined along the way or what have you, right? Or just facilitated in some way.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to like big yourself up, but like,
no. But meaning if I name certain examples, I don't want to, which I'm happy to name a couple, and they'd be fine with me naming them, I'm sure, because there'll probably be guests on this thing at some stage, right? But like, as in, I'm just saying that as a disclaimer to say that I'm not taking responsibility for.
Yeah.
So one example, so say for example someone like Shinaz Navas, who was at EdTech, who was in EdTech at a place called Emerge, right? Emerge Education, which is like Europe's largest EdTech VC, I think. Okay. So LSE graduate working there, whatever. So then he abandons that, leaves that for to go and pursue this kind of this startup, this app, right? Which started off as Guida and then became Nia, and the idea was to basically now bring this Quran education in a kind of much more current way right into the world. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Now that's an example where I was introduced to him, I think, whilst he was still at Emerge, just to kind of initially kind of help out connecting with the various kind of just people and stuff, and still in touch with him. But I hold him in very, very high regard. I think very, very solid guy. Got all the right kind of motivations, doing something which is difficult to pull off. But the point is, he took a risk, right? He took a jump, whatever, right? There's like, and interestingly, which he didn't expect, I don't believe, or certainly wasn't high on the thing, like how he would testify to the fact that as soon as you make that jump, as any kind of founder who kind of makes that jump will say, right, as they go through, it's like things just start to appear from where you don't expect. And this is a very Quranic concept, right? Like the idea of whoever is God conscious, that God provides a way out for them and will provide for them from where they don't expect, and whoever relies on God will be enough for them, will suffice them.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing where that's it. He felt, this is my service, this is my labor of love. I don't know all the detail, but I know this thing needs to exist out there in the world. I've got the background. Okay, I can hang around here, and he could justify staying where he was, and looking at that, we thought, no, I'm going to like give myself to this thing. Yeah. So I think however it pans out. But the point being is, I think this is the other point. It's like, this is not about, in the end, does it succeed or fail, like in material terms, like, by any kind of external metric. Yeah. Okay. When we run things and do things, there are metrics and things to kind of indicators to follow and to look at. But ultimately, I think, I honestly believe, like the ultimate metric is like the inner game, the inner reality, like your inner state. Like in the end, that's what really matters. And that is only going to be preserved and cultivated, and, let's call it your soul is only going to feel enriched and fulfilled. Like if you're gonna do the stuff that you really want to be doing, and you feel like this is like just wholesome stuff, basically, which I would then say was my true purpose, meaning, sort of offeringless. So that's one example I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, I feel like for this kind of like figure out your true calling thing, it's very easy to imagine sort of entrepreneurship as a path, because it's almost like a bespoke, thing that you just create to, like, in the way you want, right? For someone who has like little interest
in that part,
in like entrepreneurship and wants to stay within something relatively established and stable, like, are there examples of like career shifts there that you've seen, or like,
trying to think,
like I can definitely imagine lots of examples of like, I should like quit my job and go build this thing from zero to one.
Yes, exactly. Off the top of my head, I can't just right now. It's not coming to me in terms of specific examples. But the idea, what I say about this is that one of the benefits here is that, look, when you're clear on what you're about, what your vision is, and like you've completed your vision quest, as you call it, right? It's like the benefit then is that the filter by which you're then having interaction. Say you now want to join an established organization. Your ability to just know whether like those interactions, like the kind of people that you'll be surrounded by, are they the kind of people that align with you, right? From a value sense, like your antenna are more in tune to sort of sensing like the kind of value add that this organization is about, right? And what it's trying to bring into the world. Like, am I attuned to that or not, right? And kind of does it feel that there is an alignment? Because of course, even for the founders who go off and become founders of whatever, and it's all oriented with this kind of thinking, you see, they're going to build teams too, right? So there's going to be employees and there's going to be consultants and whatever, right? So the question still emerges for those people who are coming into this thing. They're coming into a good thing where the founder has their vision and their objectives, their alignment. But to the extent that there is a felt sense of alignment between the team members, whilst they're fulfilling their different functions in line with their specific passion, skill set, whatever, but from a values perspective, from a value add perspective, because they've done their own work or internal work, like it wasn't just a job to them. I mean, when I was running National Zakat Foundation, I would always say this to everyone, like, if this is just a job to you, just leave, right? Because, that's not going to bring the relevant kind of thing. And I know it's a tough thing to do, and as an organization, or as an organization grows, it's very hard to avoid going into this very, just almost like factory style view of labor, right, and employment and everything else. But to the extent that it can be preserved and protected, you want to really do that kind of deep culture or values work within an organization, then I think it's important. So I would just say that, like, you do the work, and it's not to say that, again, there's no merit, I'm not saying there's a greater or lesser merit to being an employee, joining a team, joining a massive organization, fine, versus starting your own thing. I'm just saying that if you've done this work, you're at least going to be just better able to know who to work with and for what. And I'm sure you've heard it. I've heard it so many times where people leave places, sometimes after a short period of time, longer period of time, because it's almost like they didn't know it, either they didn't know enough about themselves, or they didn't have the right kind of conversations beforehand to know that, like, are these people like really, like, if we align, at what level do we align, right? Such that I could possibly be working in this kind of environment, So at least, okay, I haven't been very good at thinking of like specific examples of here and there, but there will be obviously be many where switches have been made like that. But I certainly know for a fact that there's tons of people who, like, just because of who they're working with and and things that they could or should have known, let's say, some things just come through discovery and experience, obviously. Yeah, it's just like you want to know that. And actually then go confidently into your interviews, into your discussions with your authentic self, right? To say, well, this is what I'm about, this is what I'm interested in. And to ask the kind of question, let's say, that kind of brings about, like, that gives you confidence of the kind of alignment. And it's not just, just this kind of prestigious brand, nice number, on a salary, and then just a very surface level. I mean, I think definitely, from my experience, certainly at the beginning, obviously hindsight is everything. Well, you don't need to be as naive as certainly I was. Like, I think, I think I had an awareness of it, like, to a degree, but I feel also, you're just sort of sucked in, right? And it's just, you're very pulled in by the sort of shiny, shiny things. Yeah.
What are like some like problem areas or like fields or industries where there's not enough God-centered folks, do you think?
I mean, I don't know, man. Like, that's a real I have to say, I'm not saying it's not a valid question, but I generally kind of resist these macro observations about like here are the areas that need kind of this and that and on priority order and stuff. I kind of go back to my cheesy quote about just everyone find your place and everything will be fine, right? Because you could argue it's at every level, right? You could argue that within different types of, you could argue, within tech, within law, within politics, within the environmental type of stuff, within local community kind of work and and mental health services and what what I mean. Like how do you even say this is more important than that? It's more important than this, or that the under or oversupply. Like I don't know. Like that's a data question, I suppose, in terms of under and oversupply. Yeah. But I do feel that if, just from a community infrastructure standpoint, if we're looking at it from that point of view, I just think just across the board, like, okay, fine, other than, I think one thing that's interesting, I think that's emerging now over time is that more, I don't know, like look down the line and imagine that, for example, running a mosque or a community center, that's like a prestigious job. Yeah. Well paid, solid, it has a prestige, and it's exciting. And frankly, it is, like if you're surrounded by a good team, it's phenomenal stuff you can do. Right? Like for somebody who's like an activist style lead, who's organized this, you know what I mean? Like this is like, in my one of my locals where I had some kind of prior involvement, I think I may have mentioned this before, that one of the last things I did, I was an interim trustee basically just from a period of drama into hopefully a period a bit more sort of settlement. Right? I was going to hold in to save the day. But one of the last things I did before I came out was to try to facilitate and encourage, with the obviously backing of others, just for there to be a full-time center manager there, right? And now that guy, like, if you were to ask him, he is fulfilling his, he's fulfilling his thing. Right before, I think he was a teacher at a school, or I can't remember, teacher/administrator. I can't remember exactly. And he was having to drive like miles across London for this particular thing. Yeah. And this, right? He's in his element. He's doing his stuff. He's passionate about it. Like, now by any other measure, okay, it's like, it's not as prestigious or maybe even as secure as this or that, whatever. There's like obviously politics and drama that goes along with it and the usual stresses. But I'm sure when kids leave the thing that he's put on, the youth club that he's put on, or the elderly kind of, sort of leave the kind of the elderly club or whatever, or, people have come through and he's facilitated, like this or that workshop on XYZ topic. You know what I mean? Like just that whole feel and Ramadan and stuff, obviously all these things. Then I think, anyway, I'm just saying, like, the idea that these things can become like things that are understood to be just really, really valuable, like, and all our community infrastructure. I think just in community, that service provision, right? There's everything that, like any other realm, you need all the same stuff, isn't it? So if you need all the same sort of skill sets involved at some level, in terms of you need your administrators, you need your strategists, you need your marketeers, you need your fundraisers, you need your accountants, you need the theorists, and you need the academics, and you need the scholarly kind of inputs and stuff. So I think, I don't know, like just across the board, I think there's
look, I'm also like not a massive believer in this, trying to like compare absolutely everything against each other and prioritize things and so on. I think multiple things matter, and like people should be working on all sorts of things. But you're
a fan of this effective altruism stuff, right? And
I'm
well, they do. I mean, I haven't followed it as much recently, but they do a lot of this kind of. There's more of that macro prioritizing.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
And what are they saying now? Do you know?
I mean, even within the movement, from my understanding, there's like people who would think different things are like more important. There's people who think, okay, global health is probably like one of the most impactful things we can work on. There's all these people, in poverty, preventable diseases and stuff like that. And like a lot of these are very practical problems with low hanging fruit, and like we can just crack on and do that, and it'll just have massive impact. There's a lot of people that think, okay, AI is going to like destroy the world unless we do something about it. And actually the most important thing is like AI thing. There's people that think, you know what, like the way shrimp are farmed is like absolutely mental, and it's like horrific, and we should, fine, we're farming shrimp, but like we can tweak it in a very easy way to like make it much less painful for the shrimp, whatever. So
exactly, yeah. Well, this is the thing, right? It becomes very subjective, very quickly, because there's no how do you weigh up the shrimp thing against this thing, against that thing, against the other.
I mean, I think that within that community, the methodology is very much that like, hey, we should try and weigh these things up. And I guess the thinking.
But what you can't do is measure the immeasurable, right? And sometimes there's so many immeasurable effects of these things, and
Yeah, I mean, you can try and estimate these. Again, look, I'm not sort of saying like this is like
the way. Yeah.
This is like the way. I think it's a very good way to like think about, hey, like what are like the biggest problems. Well, I feel like more people should be thinking about, hey, what even are like the biggest problems that we should be trying to solve.
Yeah.
And I think probably there are lots of problems out there that are like thousands of times more impactful than like other problems like the houseplant thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And so my sense is that like you're going very hard on like if we say that the sort of the effective altruist, if we just want to like set that out as an archetype, is like goes like super hard on the like, hey, we can kind of like sort of sit down and kind of work out what everyone should be working on, basically, and then people should go and solve these problems. You're very hard on the other end of like, we just need to look inwards and see what we're drawn to, and then we go and work on that. And like what I've been trying to prod on is like, look, I think like there are obviously like really big problems out there.
Yes.
And like at what point do you interrogate your own preferences and your own sort of inclinations and say, you know what, I should be more inclined towards these like global poverty or something.
Yeah. But you can't force your inclinations. That's all. So it's like either you're inclined or you're not inclined, right? Like as I said, I'll go back to what I said before. It's like, look, the reason I prioritize the individual thing is because, like, there's no point jumping in to try and solve a problem and then just without a real assessment of yourself. That's all. And then just to find out through experience upon experience of throwing yourself at this or that. And that's part of it. That actually, that's not me. That's not me. At least go into it knowing, okay, fine, I don't know for sure. I want to try it out and see. But part of what I'm trying to get from this is to get a sense of what I'm into and whatever. So there's that experimentation, I think. That's all. And I think also that when you tackle the individual thing, I just think that once you go down that path, you find your tribe. You're in your realm. You're in that sector, industry, whatever, right? Yeah. Those discussions are inevitable. You inevitably will be part and parcel or exposed to, and perhaps even add value into, because all of these things are systems, right? No one's operating in isolation.
Yeah. You
then will kind of be part and parcel of the ecosystem that then allows you to contribute to learn from, to participate in, like these kind of order ranking type.
Okay. If we can call that sort of the top down approach versus your thing being like a very bottom up approach, right?
Yeah. The bottom up approach, I think, is the practical, pragmatic approach, which necessarily, everything. The thing is, in life, nothing's built from the top down. You can't build anything top down. You have to always build from the bottom up. I mean, you build upon you build like this. You don't start. You cannot suspend your Lego piece over here and then go.
But for example, just to continue around, where you decide to place the first block of Lego, whether you put it on this bit of land or the other bit of land, that's quite important, basically.
Fair.
And I think that's where the top down thing that we can call the effective altruist approach or whatever.
Has its place. No, absolutely.
I'm with you. I like the bottom up stuff, but like, I don't think I'm like
completely against it.
I don't think I'm. I think there's got to be some top down.
Agreed. As with everything in life, there's balance. One thing I would say, maybe broadly in closing, is that from our perspective, and bringing it back to this kind of more explicitly kind of God-centered perspective, the problem ranking or the problem solving, and the extent to which you give weight to a certain thing, I think also we have to think about it from the point of view of does it go to addressing like the ultimate problem or the root problem? It reminds me, because even there's this quote I remember from, I think his name is Gustav Speth or something, right? Right. But anyway, this I think a scientist, and he has this quote around. Maybe I'll try and bring it up on the screen, but it basically is something to do with the fact that spent 30 years and we thought we spent 30 years trying to deal with this environmental problem, and we thought it was like political reasons or maybe scientific this or that, or various we thought the solution lay here or here. But then he said but actually what we've sort of failed to realize in the end, or what we have realized, is that ultimately it's a spiritual problem, right? The imbalance in the environment, if you want to just take that as an example, is the outer manifestation of things is a reflection of the inner realities of where people are at, essentially. And this is quite a Quranic kind of Quranically emphasized. Quite a famous verse, quite a powerful one, which is in the environmental context, but just generally. It says, corruption spreads on the earth and sea because of what people have done, so that God will make them taste some of the results of their actions so that they might return. Right, i.e. onto the thing.
Yeah.
So i.e. the inbuilt mechanism in life, both for an individual as well as at a communal societal level, that where we do depart too far from, let's call it this internal natural order, etc., the results will show themselves.
Yeah.
Right. So all of this stuff I think at the heart of the issue, or the root of the issue when it comes to things, all of the prevalence of certain types of diseases, the environmental issues, whatever, various social, political, whatever kind of issues, we just need to make sure that we are not kind of falling into the thing of outwardly prioritizing and outwardly dealing with these things without simultaneously, I would say, dealing with that faith component, which is why I said, as with the kind of plant thing, or the cooking thing, or whatever, for all of these things, you can do it in such a way that
agreed. Fully.
Adds nothing really in terms of from our worldview point of view, or you can do it where it's kind of both, seemingly outwardly or materially, excellent and beautiful and everything else, as well as just very, let's say, call it deeply rooted, right? Kind of from our perspective. And I think in a way, that's where we should be. And also a person should think, that, okay, can I have that simultaneous effect, essentially?
Yeah.
But yeah, we didn't get to the AI part of things, but we'll have to, we'll maybe leave that for another time. But I think that the outstanding things maybe for future would be things like maybe a bit more on the Quranic kind of narrative around some of this stuff, I think would be helpful. And also, maybe it would be good to get some AI kind of people, because and we can discuss it. But I also kind of feel like I want to get some AI experts. In terms of what's going on and
I'm not particularly. I'm not like super plugged into that stuff.
Yeah. But obviously, you probably see the robots coming faster than most. All right. Yeah. Well, yeah. But until we're either completely taken over and we've lost our sense of purpose completely in some dystopian future, or we are left in a scenario where these questions of purpose and meaning become almost inevitable because there's the only issue actually left to solve. Until then hopefully what we've discussed is some useful inputs for people to figure out what to do with their lives.
All right.
Cool. Until next time.